Welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I'm Aidan,
And I'm Jack.
and we are very excited to be joined by one of the voices of the PLL, the in-stadium PA announcer, Jake Zimmer. Um, don't want to copy the intro that I used when we actually spoke to him, but definitely as someone that if you're a big Boston sports fan, you'll recognize his voice as the um, voice of the PLL, obviously. So any time you go to a PLL game in person, and the Bruins as well. So if you've ever been to TD Garden, you've heard that, announcing the lineups, announcing the goals, any of all that. That is Jake. So really cool opportunity. Definitely talked a lot more hockey than we usually do on this podcast, but I think given the company, that was inevitable. I think Jack and I are both huge hockey fans as well. So really cool to talk to someone who has been a part of, so many amazing moments in the last couple of years of Boston sports, to be in the arena for all that. Um, yeah, I think we'll just flip it over to Jake unless you got anything else, Jack.
No, let's do it.
All right, here's our conversation with Jake Zimmer. And thank you very much to Jake Zimmer for coming on to us. When he starts talking in a moment, I'm sure his voice will sound very familiar to all of our Boston sports fans. Jake, the voice of the PA announcements at the PLL as well as for the Boston Bruins. So, Jake, thank you very much for coming on.
It's great to be here. I mean, like, what kind of a time warp are we living in, boys, where Will Manning's playing for the Boston Cannons? This is
And
unbelievable. I feel like I'm in
well,
high school again.
almost
Well,
playing for
did
the
I
Boston
did I
Cannons.
rub a yeah, I might have ruffled a few feathers there because, that's another debate. But no, wow, what a world. I mean, what a great time it is to be a Boston Cannons fan.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely not since, I mean, 2020 you could argue, or certainly 2011 was probably the last time we felt this high. Or we could just go back to February when,
Right.
the last
So
championship. But yeah, it's been a
So
great.
I expect, like, off that, why haven't you boys campaigned to Logan Airport to put the banner up? We've got to put a banner up in Terminal C or like at
I
the luggage area. Have you guys done this yet?
We have not. That
honestly,
is a great point, though. Especially once, if the Cannons are lucky enough to win again in September, I'm sure that'll go up there. But, you know, yeah, I think we gotta, the 2021, I understand why they didn't want to put that up, but the Champ Series, I think that one,
because they have 2011
yeah, they do.
up there.
I think
So
they
maybe
do. Yeah.
I know they got the 2011. So I'm wondering if maybe the 2020 they think it
It
does
used to be up
not
there.
count because
Yeah.
it's like COVID and it was 1 week and like the semifinal became the final. Like
Well,
I'm like, okay, like maybe, and I don't know, like what do you think they would put a Celtics banner up there if they won well, I guess
I
it's
would
now the
hope so.
NBA
I mean,
Cup.
you people are the opinion makers for the Boston Cannons supporting fans, right? So call up the mayor, call up the governor. I don't care what you have to do. Let's get a banner up there, boys. Come on.
Honestly,
yeah,
yeah. Why
yeah, you're getting
not?
me fired up. I think Jack, we'll
Yeah.
stay on after this call and we'll see who we got to get in touch with. I'm sure Libby as well in some capacity, but we definitely gotta, yeah, we got to get someone on.
I trust you guys. You people can carry the Boston Cannons laurels or whatever it is. I'm not using the right terminology, but go make it happen. I believe in you.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you.
yeah, the more people talking about them, the better.
Exactly. On the topic of banners, why was there not a banner at homecoming?
Yeah, that is a great
Was there
Why did
question.
not?
the Archers got a sick banner unveiled in
Oh,
Utah? And I'm like,
they're the reigning champs, though, and I mean, it's
So are we.
I
so
yeah, well,
yeah, but
yeah,
like
okay.
no, but like I'm pretty sure I saw out at
Philly had one.
Maryland like they had notes of winning the PLL stuff. I'm like, dude, you gotta unroll that. Like they had a massive banner back in the day for the Cannons at Harvard. Like you gotta bring that thing back.
So
That was
let
that was
me tell you
disheartening.
guys, the easiest way to clear this up is if the Cannons win the championship this year, right? Then
True, totally.
all of your qualms are gone because you know what's damn well going to happen next year if that's the case.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
certainly.
massive spotlight on that thing.
Yep. That hopefully will also include 2011.
And
You'll have to
2024 Champ Series.
you'll have to
And
take that
hopefully,
up
And
with the
2020.
take
yep.
it
I
up
Up
with
want
to
all of them.
the
2025
league
Champ Series.
brass. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, Jake, thank you for getting us so fired up about the Cannons and about Boston sports in general. This is, I see why you have your job. doing great work here. Getting, we're kind of the professional hype men, or not professional by any stretch, but the hype men for the Cannons, and you've got me, getting extra juiced going into this conversation. So
I mean, as long as you can extend it out to September 2nd, I think a lot of the world's looking at you right now. And I mean the
oh
world, right? They're looking if the battery's going to show up to Gillette Stadium, even though all you people that have 617 zip codes complain about how far the drive is. So we'll see what happens. I believe in the Boston Cannons community. I believe in the battery. I fully expect to look down at Gillette Stadium and see a lot of battery shirts or whatever you guys are slinging out. So this is going to be fun.
oh yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is homecoming too for us in
Yes.
2024. And I especially would imagine, because we got all in New England, that the South Shore, which is probably where lacrosse is strongest in Massachusetts and in New England in general, all the Rhode Islanders, some people from Connecticut probably going to come over. Obviously,
Mhm.
most of Massachusetts is on the coast there, so we're gonna be filling it out. Hopefully, the PL has to open up one or two extra sections, because that would be definitely the sign of a job well done on our part.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Force them to sell more tickets than exist at Gillette Stadium. Can we sell all 67,000? That's
yeah.
the question.
I
Uh,
genuinely seeing a
why
lacrosse
not?
game with a crowd that big, especially like a home game, like getting that like Patriots feeling. I can't imagine how amazing that will feel when, because I have no doubt the league will get there. Just when that finally happens, it's going to be electric. Like
Oh yeah.
Oh
Final
yeah.
Four
Well,
obviously is the biggest crowd so far, but that's always pretty split between the audiences. If we can get a real home game with 20,000 plus for the Cannons, I
yeah.
mean that'll just
And
Well,
I
well,
mean, you'll see that to your point, right? I think I,
yeah
I do believe in lacrosse. At that large scale level, I would say everybody that's involved in the sport right now does. And the infrastructure's there, right? You see the Final Four, for example. I mean, they do over 30,000 at Lincoln Financial Field the past couple of years, or the last year,
yeah
and then the time before they had it there, right? And Gillette always draws a great crowd, so you know that this exists, and you guys were boots on the ground at Harvard. Um, that this community has not lost its love for this sport, right? So it's a really incredible time to be around lacrosse.
yeah yeah. And oh, go ahead, Jack.
no, no, go
All right.
ahead.
All right. I mean, I just, you've been doing a great job hyping us up. I would love to talk about you and the your journey with this. Is how you got your gig with the PLL, and obviously with the Bruins as well, because they're probably my two favorite sports. And just amazing that you get to be the guy who calls both of them.
Yeah, I mean, so I admittedly, fellas, was a lacrosse casual growing up, right? So I was a baseball kid through and through. That was my sport. Had a couple of friends that played lacrosse. We had, I grew up in a very small town in Connecticut that was notorious for sports, right? Like all around Fairfield County in Connecticut was just a hotbed for all sports. Football, baseball, golf was super popular, but lacrosse was shooting up at the time, right? And little did I know, I was going to school with guys like Logan McGovern around the same
Mm.
time, and Darien and Brian Minikis. I was a couple years beforehand, but that whole stretch of Fairfield County was huge in lacrosse. Now I had a bunch of friends that played our high school in a couple state championships in the FCAC, which is one of the most competitive athletic conferences in the nation. But other than that, I really didn't know what the hell lacrosse was, right? Like I knew people played it and they had flow buckets. That's all I really
Oh
knew
yeah.
what, like I
Bro,
knew a
chill.
couple, yeah, Conbro Chill was like, all I knew was really Paul Rabel existed and Conbro Chill existed. And I didn't believe Conbro Chill was a real person, honestly.
I
Like I
understand
was
that. Yeah, that
just
makes a lot of sense.
somebody, I was like, somebody just made this guy up. But then I looked him, I'm like, holy crap, there's no way his hair's real. That's unbelievable. Um,
Oh, I used to bump his music in middle school. I thought he was the king.
Yeah, did
Oh
was
my
it
goodness.
his shtick? What was he, a rapper or like something?
It
Like
was like
what music did he make?
techno, like dance
Yeah.
music,
Oh
like
yeah.
super into like neon and just being an absolute goofball, I
Oh
think,
man.
really. Yeah, I think he works in like film production now or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw his name come up a couple weeks ago on Twitter, which has just been an absolute cesspool lately of just like
Ugh.
especially Lax Twitter. Like still everybody's unhinged, which is awesome. I love to see the passion around it. But That all took me to Bryant in Rhode Island, and I was getting super involved. I got a business degree from Bryant, but I wanted to go into student radio. Um, Ended up working for the athletics department my sophomore year, and the athletic communications folks looked at me and said, "Hey, you're going to do play-by-play for lacrosse this year." And I started laughing. I'm like, that's funny. You know what? You just tell me what baseball games I'm going to do and call it a day. Um, and he said, "No, seriously, we're understaffed. We need you to do lacrosse. We know you'll figure it out." And I kind of panicked, right? I didn't know the rules going in. That I forget who the first game I broadcasted was against. But I know I was looking up what the rules were that night. I had to go meet the SID, Allie Crandall, who's now at Holy Cross. And God bless her heart, because if she didn't stay with me for 2 hours to review what the rules were and how face-offs work, and why certain penalties existed. We reviewed the women's game too, because I was expected to call both of those.
Oh geez, yeah. I
What
could
a
not do
draw
that.
control was, what green cards and yellows were. It was like, pardon my French, but holy shit, this is overwhelming here. But long story short, I mean, that's where the lacrosse journey began for me, right? 2017 was the year that Bryant won the NEC. Mike Pressler was obviously the coach there at the time, the current head coach of the New York Atlas. And Bryant won a tournament game that year, right? So that was kind of surreal for me to step back and say, holy crap, like this sport is unreal. And I was at a time that, the second round of the tournament, Bryant almost beat Maryland that year, right? A Maryland team with Connor Kelly and Matt Rambo
Yeah.
they were playing their best lacrosse ever, probably. And probably loaded up with studs. I mean, Tim Muller, who's one of my good friends, is a cousin, so I followed his career. All those folks, I kind of looked around, and I remember watching Bryant play Maryland on ESPN that round. They were tied, I think, going into the fourth quarter. I'm like, holy crap, they might pull off something historic here. But I think all in all, they lost by 3. Ohio State lost by 5 in the championship to them, so Bryant will always have that on the Maryland Terps that year. But no, stayed around the game for a while. I graduated school in 2019, was freelancing at several schools. Providence College, I stayed around at Bryant. BU, Harvard, Bentley, was calling a lot of sports, pretty much every sport under the sun, but always stayed around lacrosse. And one thing led to another. The gentleman that was the PA announcer for the PLL before me had moved on to an NFL gig. Name came up enough times from people that they had me fill in Albany, and then they had me fill in Philadelphia, and then I did the championship game in 2021. Albany was on a week's notice. It was late August in 2021. That was back when they were still with NBC Sports, and they were doing 5 games a weekend. So, I got in my car that Friday morning and just kept driving west on I-90 for hours. You guys know that drive; it's terrible. But yeah, did 2 games that weekend, and ever since then, I've been with the PLL. This is season number 4 for me, so it has been the best gig you could ask for. You get to go and travel the world, be kind of on the come up with this league, and every single moment of this ride has just been incredible. Cities that I never would have gone to, Denver, Salt Lake. I don't know how I would have gone out there without the PLL. Getting to go to San Diego a couple of weeks ago, just incredible, and really getting to spend a bunch of time down the DMV these past couple of years, and DC and in Maryland, staying in Virginia for the championship series. I mean, all of it, it's just been a hell of a ride. And then very similarly with the Bruins, Aidan, to answer your question, gentleman that was there before me, I had filled in a couple of times. I did Tuukka Rask's retirement ceremony in 2022. He just stepped down, right? He was, the commute was getting too much for him. He has a family now. He's got a great job, and he wanted to be around as his kids grow up. My name got tossed around enough times, and, next thing you know, I blink and I'm sitting in the Bruins PA chair. So been a total whirlwind. But we're really happy to have got this far.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine, like, when you first of all, when you started frantically cramming for your lacrosse quiz that was the next day, that you could have imagined, the PLL was really just in its infancy back. No, the PLL was not created yet when you started doing it.
The PLL was not even, it was probably just marinating in Paul's head at this point.
And then, I mean, obviously, who can, you can never, I'm sure you dreamed and hoped, but to get like an NHL job as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm looking now back at the archives because now I'm curious to see who the what the first. Oh, so Bryant played Providence
No,
on the
good
first day
rivalry
that
game.
I. That is a good rivalry
That
game. They
is.
lost a 7-6 grinder against the
Wow,
Friars. Providence won that.
Oof.
that is a
Tate
pre-shot clock
Boyce, who was
scoreline.
a it is a very pre-shot clock scoreline. Tate Boyce, I remember, was the goalie for Providence at that point, and he had a cup of coffee with the Atlas. I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago, maybe
Yeah,
2021, but
that
Yeah.
rings a
I don't think he
bell.
got in. Jack Concannon and JD Colarusso were tearing it up at the time, so I don't
Yep,
think he got
Cannon's
in.
legend JD Caruso.
Yes, Cannon's legend JD Colarusso.
Oh. So
He
what
didn't deserve
about
that, but anyway.
no. So you mentioned that you were looking to get into radio broadcast when you're in college. Is that sort of a lifelong kid dream? Like, kind of when did you start going down this path? How did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to do something in sports since I was 5, right? I grew up as we were catching up off air. I do have a flaw. I root for a certain baseball team in New York, which you can kick me off the pod if you want now, but I used to. I never had a TV in my room until maybe I was 10, 11 years old. So what my dad would do, I had a radio and he put on the end of the Yankee game
Mhm.
for me, right? And I listened to John Sterling and Susan Waldman call the ends of the Yankee games all day. When it was a little bit earlier, I would be listening to Michael Kay and whoever else was with him. Oftentimes, it was John Sterling on the air call Yankee games, right? And I'll never forget going into Yankee Stadium the first time. It was June 12th, 2004. It was my 7th birthday. It was with my great grandfather, my dad, and my grandfather. And we walked in. You guys have been to several sporting events. You walk into like Gillette Stadium for the first time. You go, holy crap, this thing's huge, right? You don't
Mhm.
realize how big the stadium is, and then you hear Bob Shepard talking, the voice of the Yankees. They called him the original voice of God because that's what he was. Um, and I'll never forget, you walk in there and hear him go, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Yankee Stadium." And I think like, wow, how cool would that be to do that as a career, right? Like that's his job. Um, and that was just the bug, right? Like I had tried to get on air as much as I could before college, right? And that meant going to my high school's athletic director and saying, "Hey, just give me a little corner while the basketball team plays. I'm not going to stream this anywhere. I'm going to bring a couple of buddies. All I need is Wi-Fi, right? I'll bring the rest." Um, so yeah, that was a dream in many ways to be around sports and to be on air talking about sports. So I don't think it would have ever manifested the way it did. I couldn't dream like, you told me at 5 years old, hey, you'll be doing pro lacrosse and an NHL team, both of which I never really was religious about. Um, you know, certainly would have shocked me, but yeah, certainly been a dream.
Yeah.
Wow. That that's just such a wild ride. I don't even know what to say. I mean, as a kid, yeah, you have all these cool visions and are like, wow, that would be so fun. And the fact that you're actually carrying it out right
Yeah.
now, that's just so awesome. And especially at such a young age, like we were talking about off air, that this feels like a job that it exactly is for, a 60-year-old man that's been doing it his entire life. But I guess if he's been doing it his entire life, at a certain point, he was a 20-something-year-old man. And so to see you now as that 20-something-year-old, maybe one day you will be that 60-year-old man calling these games, but that's
That's a
just
goal. Like to
crazy.
be completely honest, especially with the Bruins, that's a goal, right?
Yeah.
To have the career that Jim Martin did for 26 years behind the mic there, and I met I had the total pleasure of meeting Michel Lacroix, who was the PA announcer for the Montreal Canadiens.
Hmm.
Girlfriend and I drove up to Montreal, just took a road trip, and got connected with him, and just said, "Hey, would love to. I just would like to sit and pick your brain. I don't want any free stuff. Like just." Give me 15 minutes and let's have a coffee or dinner together. And that's what we did, right? And he's been the Habs PA announcer for 47 years. So,
Doing it in two languages.
literally in a bilingual, yeah, he's calling the game in French, he's calling the game in English. He's had a storied career at I think it's TVA or maybe it's another network in Canada, but uh, that's uh, I it, I kind of had a couple pinch me moments in that trip because he looked at me and said, "Hey, I started when I was your age, right? Like I started doing Canadians games when I was 25, 26 years old." And that for me was, oh, holy crap. If I want to, he's not this, old, unattainable figure. Like if I wanted to go that long, I could.
Hmm.
So long as the Bruins would have me, of course. But, it put a lot into perspective for me for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, talking about you said you started in 2021, and you were there for the championship game, and then you also said you were there for the Tuukka Rask retirement. What were some of the most memorable moments that you've been in the arena for in these last 4 years?
Oh man, I mean, it's hard to beat the 2021 PLL championship. We're coming out of COVID. I am a nerved up, how old was I? Probably 24, 25. I don't know. But, just getting through that game, I think was huge
Mm.
for my own confidence, right? It was okay. I did the PLL championship. This was on NBC, right? I actually voiced the teaser intro for that game as well. The PLL had asked me to do that. So that was really when I think my career started to take a turn. Um, after that, I would say with the Bruins, there were several, right? And this past year was a centennial
Yeah.
season. So
Mhm.
it's one of those that, back in October last year, I introduced all 12 people that have their numbers retired at the Garden. And then all of a fair amount of the championship teams as well.
Hmm.
Uh, and then the roster, right? That's before you
Yeah.
even get to the roster. So for me, it was when people ask, how did you feel for that one? I always tell them it doesn't really hit you while you're doing it because you're reading off a script. You're trying to take cues from the control room, and then you look back and you don't realize that Bobby Orr is waving to the crowd and the fans are going frantic. You're just reading off that script, so it's one of those things that I think in general for the Bruins, like you appreciate it more as time goes on, right? Like I can't wait to one day show that YouTube clip to my kids and grandkids and whatever else, like say, look what I got to do. I got to introduce the best players ever to play for the Bruins, right? So that's all year was certainly one. I always point at Patrice Bergeron's 1,000th point as another
Mm.
huge opportunity because that's my parents were in the crowd, my whole family was there, and we got to celebrate my personal favorite Bruin, right? So
That's incredible.
there's been several. I think in a more interesting note, I don't know if you guys are college basketball fans, but I was doing the PA for the NEC championship in 2022. Bryant was playing Wagner, and a massive brawl broke out in the stands.
Oh.
My face is plastered all over ESPN because I'm with the microphone. The athletic director comes over and yanks it from me and is telling everybody, calm down because the cops are coming in. There were plenty of memes, and I'll have to show you guys the picture of just me going like that all over ESPN. So that's another just random highlight of my career that was, I'll never forget that one for sure.
Yeah, how could you? And then, I know I went out and just enjoyed the crowd in the streets afterwards, but when the Bruins beat the Canadiens in overtime this past, what, April, what was it like to be in the building for that? I mean, I know how crazy I went, like all the bars and whatever you could hear around the street, like to be in the building for that, 18,000 people celebrating Toronto's misery yet again. What was that feeling like?
Oh, you talking about Game 7 in early May, right, where they beat the
Yes.
Leafs? Um, man, uh, indescribable.
Yeah.
You walk in there, you kind of are. I'm speaking for me personally, not on behalf of anybody else. I mean, you're kind of approach those game sevens with a cautious tentativeness, especially after what happened last year.
Yeah.
Um, you're scarred from that kind of stuff. So you walk in there, you're like, I don't know. Like obviously the excitement's there, the nerves are there, but you kind of have that feeling in the back of your head of, oh no, are they destined for this again? And then a minute and 54 seconds in, Pasternak just goes down the freaking ice and he pots
Mhm.
it. I mean, I've seen that place really loud when several times. I mean, Marchand's natural hat trick this past year, where he scores 3 goals in a row, beats the Columbus Blue Jackets. The place was roaring. when they beat the Canadians in January 9-4. They just whooped them.
Oh yeah.
They took them to the woodshed. That place was roaring. No one left. I don't think any of those compare to what we saw on May 4th, 2024, right? Like that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And no one left too. Everybody's staying there for, well after the game, 15, 20 minutes, and security's trying to wave them all out of the garden. Everybody's like, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to stay here and scream, and the music's playing and bumping, and everybody just kind of exhales, right? Of course they got knocked out by the Panthers again the next round, but this season produced a lot of great moments, so that's got to be on the top of the list.
Yeah, that is just so cool. I remember I went to a Bruins game 2021, game 2 East semis against the Islanders. It was the first full capacity crowd post COVID. Technically, the Red Sox were the first one in the city earlier that afternoon, but it was a cold, rainy April day, so they were still at like 50%. So this was the first sellout crowd post COVID, and I got tickets. We were legit last row of the nosebleeds, back against the wall. And I have a video in my snap memories of just me slowly panning across the crowd, and I think I captioned it something like "COVID is over," and it was just nuts seeing the place wall to wall. And then Pasta goes off for a Hattie. They end up winning, I think 5-2. Like the barn was buzzing that night, and I can't even imagine, like, in an atmosphere like that, game 7 for Toronto, just how crazy it was coming through the TV, just to get to experience that in person.
Oh
so
yeah.
Cool.
And I mean, I will die on this hill now that I've this will be year 3 with the Bruins, and year 4 of working in some capacity, but I'm going to die on this hill. I do think Bruins fans are the most passionate in Boston. I think they definitely have the Celtics fans beat. I think they have the Red Sox fans beat because they're all miserable. Which, granted, listen, I told you my fandom, but I think there is legitimacy to that, and that's a separate discussion, right? I think you have a right to be pissed if you're a Red Sox fan right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I also do think, in a way, as a diehard Patriots fan myself, I think Bruins fans are much better than Patriots fans, right? I think now Patriots fans will go sit and tailgate for hours. I will give them that. They will brave the elements, and they will sit out there and drink and drink and drink until they have to go into the stadium, and then they'll drink some more. But I think Bruins fans are they are there for that team regardless of what's going on, right? They know that ownership's putting him in the best situation they can. And they know that they're selling out TD Garden every night. And so are the Celtics, but they stick around, these Bruins fans. So I'm dying on that hill.
Yeah. I don't know if I can argue with that. No. Honestly, there's something about
maybe the battery.
Actually, Cannons fans to be number one.
The Cannons fans.
Yeah, we just haven't had enough games yet.
I will say what I will say here is that Cannons fans, and I hope Mike and Paul and whoever else. I'm sorry for inducing some bias here, but this is my geography, so I can say this stuff. I do think Cannons fans are the most passionate in the PLL. I really do think so.
Yeah, I know.
And you guys have to realize that there is the advantage of the former MLL team. Denver has it too.
Yeah.
Right. But you walk into Harvard Stadium and people are wearing Cannons jerseys from I don't know, the early 2000s.
Yeah. I got an MLL one over in my closet right there.
Yeah. It's I don't know that it's close, to be honest. Now, Denver gave you a run for your money, I will say. Sure. But man, the battery's out in full forces.
Yeah, I think we also, we definitely benefited from being in the biggest capacity venue this year. So, the capacity of Denver is 5,000, and the capacity of Harvard's 30. And obviously the PL didn't get close to that.
And you do benefit as the Boston Cannons from playing in the same stadium that the Boston Cannons played in before, right? So all the security people were even talking to me before the game. They're like, wow, last time I saw the Boston Cannons in this stadium was whatever. I'm like, well, it was long before I was watching them in the stadium, that's for sure. So
and it's just such an iconic venue with the
Right.
Coliseum. Just the visual of it is
Yeah.
so cool. And yeah,
Doesn't it look like where the gladiators played back in the day?
literally,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, that's the inspiration.
so it's just, yeah, Harvard Stadium is a special place. And obviously we're clearly biased, but we think Boston Cannons fans are
Yeah.
the best fans. And I mean that crowd at homecoming, especially the second night against Philly, that was an out of body experience, honestly,
Oh my
being a part
God.
of
I was
that.
sitting there crying. I was damn near crying in the control room up there. So everybody knows our great DJ Ralphie Ralph, who's been with the league for
Mhm.
several years. He was there all except one, actually. In 2021, he was not with the league, but every other year he was there. Him and I were sitting before the game. He was asking me, hey, what kind of Boston songs, should I include? And, the typical Dirty Water and,
Yep.
all the
Mhm.
drop kicks and all that stuff. He starts listing off Dropkick Murphy songs. I told him about Brad Marchand's natural hat trick in December, which for you guys that don't know, it was this Bruins game was a crappy game, right? They had just beat Toronto in overtime in Toronto the day before. It was a Saturday night. They beat them. They were exhausted, and then they have to come home that Sunday and play the Columbus Blue Jackets, who were just hot garbage last year.
Mhm.
The crowd was out of it. It was 1-0 going into the third period. The Blue Jackets were up, and the Bruins just were way behind. They were dragging their feet. They were clearly worn down. And then Brad Marchand scores 3 goals in a row in like the first 8 minutes of the third period. Our DJ, TJ Connolly at the Garden, didn't think, and he just played Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli. And the crowd just is singing. You guys know the Boston crowds, they love
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff. So they say, I
Oh,
love you, baby. All that. I told Ralph, I said, you better not break this out unless something crazy happens and there's a comeback. And sure enough, the Boston Cannons keep chipping away, and Marcus Holman scores that 2-pointer right at
Oh
the
yeah.
end. And he breaks out this remix of Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli, and I almost started sobbing. Like, nice work, Ralph. That is why that's just a shout out for Ralph. But then all the Boston fans down there, I can hear this through the plexiglass of the control room 7 levels up at Harvard Stadium. The crowd singing it. I couldn't believe it. That some of them were, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
nearly as deafening as previous crowds, but man, it just goes to show. I mean, it doesn't matter what logo you stick on a team. If it says Boston, this crowd's going to go nuts, which
Yeah.
is the very uniqueness of this market for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get like that full home and away schedule, and you get, whether it's 5, 6, 8, 10 games, whatever it is, with that Boston crowd, especially if they continue to be on, I would assume they'd all be weekends. Like that crowd, especially every time they play Philly, every time they play New York, like
mhm.
it's that
Look
it's
at
really
this
a
Water
feeling like
Dogs Cannons rivalry now. It's
That,
incredible, and
yeah.
it's nice to be on the the good side of it. Like you guys would have
Oh
a very different perspective if you were on the Philly podcast right now.
yeah,
For
this
sure.
was a miserable year to be a Dogs fan, but oh well.
well, not our problem. I
Nope.
mean, championship's going to be in Philly, but they won't be there. So,
You guys are ruthless. Wow, I love it.
It's like a reflex. Like I can't help but take shots at Philadelphia, particularly the Dogs. I don't know what it is. It's just something about
it
the competitor and me
it's
Well,
that
just
that's how you know, like the mark of true fandom, and that's I've talked to several people about this in the PLL. First, obviously, it's that hey, we're cheering for the home crowd, right? You saw that in several markets this year that just threw their support. I think
yeah.
Boston was certainly, that's they set the bar. I was really impressed with Maryland this year too. How Homewood Field kind of just threw all their support around. The Redwoods, even the Redwoods are California's team, right? I don't care
mhm.
about the product they put on the field this year. Like there was more Redwoods merch sold there than I don't have the numbers, but they sold a lot of Redwoods merch basically. And people
Mhm.
who had never seen the PLL had flocked and said, "Yeah, give me a Redwood shirt." Right?
Mhm.
Utah, obviously, they throw their support around the Archers. Denver was great. So you have those markets. Like that's the first mark of it. The second mark of it is you boo the opponent, right? If they're booing the opponent, and in Boston uniquely, I was joking. It's like oh, they're booing the refs, right? This is Boston.
Yep.
They've
Well,
embraced
there's some
this.
bad
Well,
calls.
I think they deserved it.
Yeah.
There were some questionable calls
You
and
better not tell
non-calls in
Matty
that
P.
game.
Matty P's
No,
gonna
he
be
wasn't
He
very
directing
wasn't
that weekend.
there.
Oh,
We
that's
were
right. It was
chanting to bring him back.
yes.
That was the chant. We started the "We Want Maddie" chant.
Oh, you guys started that? I forgot about that.
No, I
love it.
personally, I don't think we personally did, but
No, I did.
Okay.
oh, you
It
did.
was
Okay.
me and a couple like high schoolers that are sitting in the front row with me, like that they missed the call and they're like, oh, something about like
I
it's like
remember hearing that now.
someone shouted, one of them shouted like, I wish Matt Palin were here, and then I look at him, I go, should we do a "We Want Maddie" chant? And they're like, yeah, and then we just went for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
a
and
true
that's
mark of the Boston fandom is like, every time either it's deserved or not, that you when you hear the refs booed, I mean, that's when you know a city has embraced its team.
yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the secondary mark is, I'm sure we're always gonna like Boston and Philly should probably be in each other's homecomings for as long as this model is existing, but
Hmm.
it was unfortunate that the Atlas Outlaws game was such a blowout in Harvard because I think if that game was a little closer and if it wasn't so late, we would have heard like a lot of boos for New York. Like if that game had instead of being what it was 17-4, if that was like, 15-12, like and the Outlaws had a chance, and we would have seen the crowd really rally behind the Outlaws. So
Yeah, it's tough. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Aiden. Because there's part of me that's now I didn't think of this but now I'm thinking of it as you say it. Like if there's the vintage MLL crowd in that stadium, there would have been cheers for the Outlaws, right? Like
yeah.
I have no doubt that there would have been some Outlaws fan there, and what a hell of a turnaround they've had this year. Eric Law has been a godsend for them, but
Oh
imagine if
yeah.
Eric Law was playing for them right then and there. That would have been really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. If he'd been playing for the Outlaws the whole season, I think they would have finished ahead of the Archers in the standings.
It's fair to wonder that, yeah.
Yeah.
But
They just needed
I
one
give
more
a lot of
win.
yeah, I give a lot of credit to Tim Sudan. I give a lot of credit to Mike Pressler too. Seriously,
Oh
like
yeah.
he had people calling for his head on Twitter last year, right? They were like, "Get this guy
Mhm.
out. He doesn't know what he's doing." Right? The same way they're treating Bill Tierney this year, right?
Yeah.
But uh, you adjust to the coaching style, you load up and look at what they've done, right? So I mean, I give those guys a lot of credit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we can get to a little prediction. So you've seen not every game because you mentioned you were off for at least 1 week this year, but you've seen probably more lacrosse, at least in person, than just about anyone else. Um, how do you think the playoffs are going to shake up? Who do you think's going to win the championship this year, and why is it the Cannons?
Oh man, a nice little leading question. I love it. Um, no, listen. I mean, if you want the recency bias, he can stand up here and say, "Well, look what the Chaos did at Gillette Stadium last year," right? And but one thing is sort of it's sort of like burned in my brain is never doubt Andy Towers. Because when you start doubting Andy Towers, that's when you really look like a fool. That's like what he's built his shtick on too. You guys have seen all the social media posts.
Oh yeah.
He's all over the place. Andy
He
is a great
is
guy.
something else.
Yes,
The
he's a beauty. Aren't we so lucky to have him as like one of the staple head coaches of this league though?
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's unbelievable.
We really are.
Um,
It just the range of coaches. We talked about this with the Red Legion, the Chaos supporter group last week. The difference between Brian Holman and Andy Towers
oh my
as
god.
human beings is just like we were saying. What was it that Brian Holman saying is, we're just gonna do our best and look up at the scoreboard and see what it says at the end. And
That
Andy
is not what
Towers,
Andy Towers said. I
Andy
don't know what
Towers,
he said, but it wasn't that.
well, did you saw the clip of that we talked about it last week that Aiden, what was the line? You go, expect to get fucked and be pleasantly surprised if you don't. Like,
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
but anyways, I
Oh
I
goodness
digress.
gracious.
You were telling us about
No, it's
Andy
okay.
Towers. And then
I
you
can't
tell
beat
us about
that.
the playoffs.
No, look, I mean, the first round presents a very tough challenge, I'll be honest, right? It's
Yeah.
look, I do think the Chaos defense when they're on, they have the best in the league, right? But I
Mm.
also think when the Cannons offense is on, they have the best offense in the league, right? Like you can't stop the two and it's cooking.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember watching Matt Campbell at Villanova. a total freak. But I never once really said like, wow, that guy, like he's a bigger dude for sure. But he's not like this physically imposing presence like Romar Dennis or Jared Newman or some big guy. But he'll make you pay, right? Like he just plays so downhill, and I always love that part of his game where he just so like, I don't know, is athletically sound like a term in lacrosse? Like he's just so he plays the game like an athlete. So I think if the two's firing, it's going to be really tough to defend. And who knows with I don't know about Jack Rowlett now that he got pulled from the game. I don't know what's going on with him, but I think the Cannons have a good opportunity to just shut a lot of people up and say, no, okay, we're not screwing around. This is not a fluke this year, right? We're coming for it. I am very curious to see what happens with Denver. Right, super young team, but they have the veteran anchor. That's a story this year. It's like, okay, I can see either one of the Whipsnakes or the Outlaws going to win the championship. Seriously. Like, I really do think now's the time to, for one of those guys, I think because the winner of that plays the Archers, right?
No, the winner of that plays the Atlas.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Winner
so the
of Cannons game plays the Archers.
Yeah. So that's, man, you got to be, if you're the Cannons, you got to be sitting there thanking your lucky stars of that's your draw. Cause obviously what happened with Schreiber sucks because he's a stand-up guy. He's one of my favorite guys in the league, just from a person perspective, like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And I know he's looking forward to playing for a few more years for sure until the Olympics comes around. So that's a real bummer for him. And I hope he gets better. This is wide open. It's wide open for the first time. Like I knew I kind of had in my head last year, I said, Archer's Water Dogs just makes sense. Right. But this year I have no idea. Are we destined for Cannons Atlas? Probably. Like that's really do what I think. I think, gun to my head, that's what happens here. And I don't know if my heart can take that personally. I have the Bryant head coach going against my hometown team. I can't take that. Like I might just have to call in sick for the championship. I'm sure they'd love that. No, I think that's what we're destined for. But I really do. If Denver or Maryland comes out on top, that would not surprise me either.
Yeah, that Maryland just looks so scary now. Like hopefully, well, for the Cannon's sake, I hope it was just Tucker Dordevic because he's not playing. But like they just made a total turnaround. Like they were 2-4, they win the last 4 in a row. Like we'll probably do a predictions episode next week, but I think they're gonna kind of steamroll Denver. I don't know that Eric Law's leadership, especially because like Brennan O'Neill we talked about this our last episode, 29 points, 9 of them came in that win against the Archers in week 3. Not that 20 points in 9 games is bad, but no points last week.
It's fair to wonder because, like, you look at the Chrome from a couple of years ago, and it's what is it, 2022? They were 2 in the league. Brendan Nichtern, who's one of my favorite lacrosse players ever.
Oh,
a lot of hype around them that year, and look what they did. They just got their ass kicked.
Yeah, man. If Brendan Nichtern could have stayed in the league, what a different franchise that would be.
Oh my God, I think about that a bit too often, if I'm being honest, because he was just a total stud. I called BU versus Army twice that year. And we were talking to Joe Alvarisi, who coached at Army, and he was just raving about him. And I hadn't really kept up with Army lacrosse that year until they played BU. I said, who's this Nichtern kid? And I looked at his stats and said, he has how many assists? It's like probably 35 or 40 at the time. And this is midway through March or something like that. What a game changer player he was. And, obviously serving our country, a very valiant effort. So kudos to him. But is that a situation with Denver this year? I think Tim Sudan and Eric Law would say no, because they do have some veteran leadership, but it's a fair point. Like, another thing that scares me about that is the face-off matchup, right? Because Joe Nardella has shut a lot of people up this year. I give Nardella a lot of credit. Very easy to write off a guy. They rostered Petey LaSala earlier in the year and they tried to mix him in, but Nardella played his way back into it. He said, I got a lot left in the tank here. Carved up basically everybody in his path the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to be interested to see, like, if they have an advantage from the face-off X against Denver, that could be very tough to overcome for the Outlaws. So yeah, I think it starts with ball possession, and if they do that, I'm kind of with you, Aidan. Maybe that goes to Maryland's way a bit quicker than we think.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull up and see how that face-off matchup went when they played in the regular season, which was not that long ago. It was
And Luke
60,
Weirman's been really good.
yeah.
I will qualify
Um,
that.
62 to 34. That doesn't add up to 100. Fascinating. But
96%. That's it.
yeah. Maybe that only took the face-off specialist into account and not the any violations. But yeah, so the point is Nardella definitely got the best of that. So we'll see. Certainly I'll be rooting for Denver. I've been debating because I do have a jersey for most teams. If I wear, or like, I bring my Cannons stuff for the Cannons games, and then I also bring my Outlaws jersey for game two.
I mean,
Um,
you'll have to wear whose ever jersey you're more optimistic to face in the championship then.
yeah, I mean, certainly I would rather the Cannons face the Outlaws, if only because I don't want the Whips to win a third one.
Yeah, no, and I understand that piece too, but and Stags has done a really good job. He talk about shutting people up. He shut a lot of people up this
Yeah.
year. It's kind of that like middle of the road team. This could go one of two ways, but he made a lot of roster decisions that people kind of were like, I don't know how this will work out, and every single one of them have paid off, right? Like
Yeah.
going full blown with Krebs this year, I think was a great idea in between the pipes. Their defense has done a great job, even with losing Bryce Young. I think they've really stepped up to the occasion. Zapatella's having a really good, nice
Oh yeah.
rookie campaign.
TJ Malone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously
Will
TJ
Manny.
Malone. I was gonna say, yeah, what wild stuff that Will Manny is off the roster and this team's better, right? Like
Yeah.
Levi Anderson has been excellent. How do you let a
Oh my
guy like
God,
that
yeah.
go? That's kind of, I don't know. It's like a meme on Lax Twitter now too. Everybody's talking about that. They're like, "Oh, Levi Anderson's not a Redwood anymore," but it's what a presence he's been for them too. And the Whips have been playing their best lacrosse. So
Yeah.
I think for me this presents a good opportunity for the Whips to get back to the semis.
Yeah, well, that's that'll be a fascinating matchup if it's Whips Atlas in that semifinal. And then hopefully it's Cannons Archers. We know how that went the first round. Don't know that they're going to get 5-2s in a game again, but first they got to get past the chaos. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Certainly we hope to see you there. We know you'll be there, but see you.
I will.
Certainly you'll
I'll
see
be
us.
there. I will certainly see you. I'm campaigning hard to move the place where I PA games to downstairs because they have two press boxes at Gillette Stadium, because why not? Everything's big in football stadiums.
Fair.
I've historically called the game from like the top floor press box. I'm trying to get down to the lower bowl this year just because it's easier to see. A lot of stuff's better. So
Yeah.
will be easier for fan access too. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
try to come down and pay a visit to my friends at the Battery for sure.
Yeah, we'd love to see you.
That'd be great.
All right. Jack, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, honestly, I think that does it.
All right.
That was great.
Well, before you go, I had one favor to ask. Could you talked about wanting to do something in sports for your whole life. Could you fulfill a childhood dream for myself? And I don't know if Jack wants this too, but could you give me a Cannon's goal scored by number 39, Aiden Gurrell, in your best PA voice?
Oh wow, man, this is these are billable hours. I don't know. Should I send the invoice to you? No, I'm kidding. You want Cannon's goal scored by number 39, Aiden Gurrell. All right,
Yes.
cool. Cannon's goal scored by number 39, Aiden Gurrell. Let's take a look at the replay.
I will definitely be clipping that. And if ringtones were still a thing, that would be my new ringtone.
Oh, that would be so cool. That would be awesome.
Jack,
Man.
Sure. Yeah. Give me a number 5 Jack Horseman, please.
Oh man. Cannon's goal scored by number 5, Jack Horseman.
Oh, nice. That was
Maybe
incredible.
who do I have to butter up to get them to play that over the loudspeaker at Gillette?
Oh God, no!
Could you imagine?
Yeah, that would you should
Just
I mean you
drop
should
that in
definitely
there.
do a you could probably make some money on Cameo for that, especially for
Ooh,
the
I
Bruins
bet.
angle of it as well.
It's a fair
Yeah.
point. Although
Yeah, I don't know if, you probably have to pay the Bruins some licensing for that, but
um yeah, especially with Todd Angeli and all his DraftKings deals, he's doing well for
oh
himself
yeah,
in the
I've definitely seen
professional.
his face on billboards around Boston.
Yeah, he had at least last year. It was like the Boston trio is David Ortiz, Zdeno Chara, and Todd Angeli
Yeah,
together on
and
the
Scal.
DraftKings. Yeah, Scal too. He was all
Scal
over the
was out
DraftKings
there.
ads.
Yeah.
On the
Oh,
North Station, like subway, yeah, like inside the T stations,
yeah.
Yeah,
they had pictures of all of them, and Todd's singing, and he's going like that. Like, man, you got it pretty good, Todd.
yeah. We got the advantage.
Oh.
People see his face. They know who that is. I
I
imagine,
know.
that you talked about, people saying, "Oh, I thought you'd be older." I imagine you don't get recognized unless you talk to someone for a good amount of time.
No, no, I got recognized one time, and I was actually with a coworker coming back from a Red Sox game at a work event, and one of my buddy. It was very weird. We were taking the tee back. It's the Green Line right near man, what's the station over there? It's right near
Kenmore?
Kenmore. I don't
More.
know. And a guy from college that I haven't seen in 5 years, he said hello. He's like, "Oh, look, it's the voice of the Bruins." He's like giving me crap. And then right out of nowhere, a kid, probably 15 or 16 years old, comes up and goes, "Oh my God, I recognize you from TikTok." Um, and I actually didn't know how to conduct myself because I'm far from a celebrity. I'm just like as
Yeah.
normal of a person as you can imagine. And that kid comes up to me, he's like, "Oh my God, can I get a selfie? Like, can you sign this for me?" Um, and he
Wow.
just walked away. And my coworker looked at me. He goes, "How much money did you pay that guy to say that? Like, you did not need to impress me like that." No, that's the one time I've been recognized. And the kind of mantra goes, if you're a PA announcer and somebody recognizes you, that's not good. You probably did something wrong. You
Hmm.
know, probably if they see your face, something went
Yeah.
wrong.
I mean,
Generally
maybe there was just
speaking.
a bench clearing brawl happening in the game in front of you.
Yes, maybe you were watching Bryant Wagner in March of 2022.
Uh,
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I gotta think that the radio gig and the broadcasting gig or the PA announcing is not, you don't get in it for the fame, hopefully. But
Right. Yeah, you do it because you love it, right? And
yeah.
that's you're not going to get rich off of it. You're not going to it's but it certainly you do it because it's fun, right? And I've always told people like the second I stop having fun, I'm not going to do this anymore, which I hope is never, right? Like that's
Mhm.
that's the key. You got to have a lot of fun in this. This is a fun sport. Who doesn't love the physicality, the two pointers, the behind the backs, like Connor Fields every time he walks out on the field.
Yeah.
It's been a really fun year. And also I should say, catch the Stars and Stripes Classic too. Are you guys going to be
Yo,
around for
yeah.
that?
Oh, of
Yeah.
Good.
course.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely
That'll
spending
be
the whole day
very
for that.
cool.
Good.
Yeah.
That I love it. So I will. I'll share some news here. By the time you guys release it, it'll be public. I will be play by play for that game on ESPN Plus. That'll be really cool. There is an unnamed special guest that will be doing color with me that I'm not at liberty to say until he's
Ooh.
accepted.
Okay.
But it may or may not be someone that is a current PLL player. So just I'll let that marinate for a while. We'll see what happens. Tune in to ESPN Plus if you won't be at Gillette, because that'll be awesome. It's the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets, the
Yeah.
first Special Forces Division game between two. No, it's the first game between two special divisions of the U.S. military. So that's like, I'm looking forward to that for
Yeah,
sure.
and they are definitely two groups of people who do not know how to half-ass anything. So
No,
we honestly might see a more competitive game than either of the two professional teams, or
it's
any of the four
reasonable.
professional teams playing later that day. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the skill level won't be as high, but the competitiveness and the desire to win will definitely be there.
That is a reasonable thing to think for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Oh.
can't wait for that. And then obviously, to see our hometown boys hopefully advance off to the next round. We'll not be going to Long Island because I don't want to spend 16 hours in traffic, but uh
Just take the ferry, man.
yeah, that
Just
would
pop
be
over.
Yeah, my girlfriend took that earlier. One of her friends, like family, has a house on Long Island.
Mm.
Mhm.
Someday, but not this year.
You're a true Bostonian because like the second you get past the I-93 bubble or whatever it is, you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, I gotta spend 16 hours in traffic. Like,
Yeah.
I
You're
just
like,
hop on the
eh,
ferry, man.
Well, yeah,
It's an
no,
I'll
hour and a half.
you're right. I'm just thinking of trying to drive through New York and then back out to Hofstra. Um,
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
if you go hit it from New London, man. You got it. You'll
Yeah,
figure it
that's
out.
I went to college in New London, so
Oh, sweet. There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah, it'd be a nice return to my old stomping grounds. Um, saw our team lose many a college lacrosse game on that.
Oh.
Stuff being in the same division as Tufts.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was
that'll happen.
probably like Mike Daly Tufts too. That was I'm sure that's
Um,
when he was coaching the team. The current Brown coach.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because I was there 2014 to 18.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right in the thick
Mhm.
of his like dynasty run where he turned Tufts into what it was. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to go see Tufts Connecticut College is where I went to. They played at Tufts earlier this year. I went just to see my college team play, even though I knew it wasn't gonna be pretty. It was like 12-1 at halftime. I was sending my girlfriend like, all right, we can go.
Yeah, no,
We
it's
don't
We're not
need
coming
fine.
back. Yeah, it was 1-1, and then it was like 12-1 or something.
Yeah, at
Uh,
that point, you're
so
better off going straight up the road to Malden and going to Dom's Sausage, get a quick sandwich and go home. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll probably won't make the trip down to New London to see that game next year because there's nothing worse than seeing your team get killed. It's driving 2 hours to see them get killed and then driving 2 hours back.
But then, oh
Understandable.
man, what's there's not. Oh yeah, you can hit a Great Sale Brewery on the way back though. That's always tempting.
Yeah,
And
that
the
I think I might do that, but for a game they actually have a shot of winning. So yeah.
Touche.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Jake, for coming on. This was really cool. To see, behind the curtain, as it were, a little bit, to hear the Wizard's voice. So, or to see the
Mhm.
Wizard's face, I suppose. We hear your voice all the time. Um, yeah, thanks so much for your time. We'll hear you and hopefully see you September 2nd, the 15th and 7th of September as well. And then, I'm sure I'll be I don't even know how many Bruins games um this year, but I'll definitely watch most of them on TV. So look forward to seeing and hearing from you again quite soon.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me on, guys. And I'll keep my Cannons fandom at bay for now until the celebration. Let's get the duck boats ready, and yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's
Just
do
gotta
it.
just gotta sound unbiased. You can, do all the jumping and cheering you want, but just as long as it doesn't leak into your voice.
I got to give Drew Carter a run for his money because he was on the duck boats this year, so I gotta one up him.
That's right.
But
Oh, I did not remember
That's
seeing that.
right.
he
Yeah.
certainly was. He was hanging
He
out with
he
Mike
was
Gorman on the
there.
duck boats. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Gorman definitely deserves to be on there.
Yeah.
Not saying Carter doesn't, but obviously Gorman, just longer tenured. Yeah, hopefully we get
But
to celebrate that, and we would, love to give you a shout out or call out to you from whatever that parade route looks like.
Love it. Let's do it, fellas. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much
let's
for
do
having me.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. And thanks again to Jake for coming on. Great dude. Great chopping it up with him. And like you said in the intro, we talked a lot more hockey, I think, on this pod than we normally would. But you know what? I've said before, obviously, I'm not just a Boston Cannons fan. I'm a Boston sports fan. That is my thing. So I'm happy to talk a little Bruins with someone who obviously has a very close connection to the
Hmm.
Bruins. But we also talked good amount of lacrosse there. He's seen some fun stuff both back in his days in Bryant and now with the PLL. So it's just really cool to hear his side of the story on some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and we mentioned some of those amazing moments that he's been privy to. Obviously, the 2021 championship, and all the amazing games we've seen the past couple of years in the PLL, and then in the hockey side of it too. Like to be in there for Bergeron's 1000th point, Pasternak's 60th goal, that comeback. I mean, that beating the lead. The same with Philly, like talking crap about the Water Dogs. I'm that same way about the Maple Leafs. It's like, oh,
You,
just
you
anytime the
have to.
Bruins beat the Maple Leafs in the playoffs. It just brings
It's
so much joy to my heart.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I gotta think that the that 2013 one where they were down, was it 4-1 in the third period? But
oh,
like,
that would be a cool
yeah.
moment to have experienced in person.
But now you've got that legacy, right? Because that was the first time, and then it happened a couple years later. It happened again. So this is like the fourth or
Yeah.
fifth time in the last 10 or so years that the Bruins have eliminated the
It's
Leafs in 7 games.
it's the
In the
fourth time, I think. It was 13, 18, 19, and now 23.
Yeah, and it's been seven each time,
Yep.
and I think it's been in Boston each time.
Yep.
So, uh, yeah, just one of our greatest traditions. I know eventually it's gonna end, and that's really gonna, excuse me, that's really gonna suck. But every year that
Hopefully not in
lasts,
our lifetime.
no, yeah, because it's not like they have to meet in the playoffs every year. Um, yeah, just
Yeah.
amazing. And then, to get involved with the PLL and hear how he went from really not knowing much about lacrosse to being obviously like a big fan of it now, kind of required for his
The
job. But
voice of lacrosse,
yeah,
you could argue.
yeah. And I mean, but you hear that love, that passion that he has for the sport, that it's really
Hmm.
grown. And it, came out of obviously a different path than the average fan will, but I think that's exactly the journey we want to see, right? Um, and man, I can't imagine being told that I'm calling a lacrosse game tomorrow and having to like I
Look up
imagine
the
a lot of that happens
rules.
for the Olympics, where someone's like, "You're calling rugby tomorrow," and some I don't know Japanese person is like, well, we don't have rugby here really, so like I'll do my best, but uh,
Hmm.
like
Yeah. What a
it just
wild story.
yeah, very we've all had I think some stressful cramming for a test experiences, but most of the time there wasn't an audience for those, so
True.
props to him. I would love to see if that was like the recording of that was available anywhere, just to hear how that went. Uh,
Yeah.
would be, I'm
That's
sure,
so funny.
he'd be horribly embarrassed by it now with knowing so much more about the league. And also that 7-6 scoreline. Oh,
That sounds yeah. No, that sounds brutal. That's
yeah.
back in the days of stall warnings.
Yep. Where I
Oh,
think you had some literally like 3, 4, 5 minute possessions.
well,
Brutal.
even now, like I'm so glad that World Lacrosse is implementing the shot clock for
Hmm.
2027, and I'm sure it'll be in the Olympics in 2028 because some of those games, even just last year, the 2023 Worlds were brutal to
Yeah.
watch with just how friggin' slow the game is.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
because
something
you're so
you'll definitely,
used to
yeah.
seeing the PLL and college games being so fast now that when you go and watch an international game, it's like, what is this?
Yeah. And
But
I think I've mentioned this before, is like playing ULAX, like I play LSM, so I'm like, all right, well, we only got to defend for 80 seconds. Then I'm like, oh wait, no, we got to defend until either we get a turnover or a save or they score.
yeah,
So it's grueling out there.
it is. But
Yeah, that's definitely something the PLL
anyways,
did right, is speeding up the
yeah,
pace of play.
yeah,
And as always, we've drifted a little bit far afield of our initial thank you to Jake outro, but we just love talking about sports. So
we
we
do.
stuck with us through however long that tangent was. But back on it now. Thank you again to Jake. Can't wait to see him September 2nd. Hopefully well, I'll be watching either way, but hopefully we get to see and hear him call the Cannons all the way to September 15th and beyond.
And he said he had some great moments that he's been a part of. Is the next great moment calling the Cannons 2024 championship game in the city of Philadelphia while the Philadelphia Water Dogs sit at home?
Hope so. Yeah. Find out in about 3 weeks.
uh, yes, we will.
Yeah. Yeah, great
All right.
conversation. I'm sure we'll have him on again because he's just a really cool person to talk to and clearly in the right
Mhm.
job. Like I said, he got us so hyped up for Boston for homecoming, for the playoffs just immediately upon starting this call. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, thank you to him. Can't wait to talk to him again. Um, we'll be back on Monday, probably with some playoff predictions, some um some matchups, some concerns. And until then, go Cannons.
Go Cannons. Boom.
Boom.